Welcome. Listen closely, because the story I'm about to tell is not about time, but about something far more valuable. It is a story about how we choose to see the world beyond the 7 peaks. Mountains lay a small valley perpetually shrouded in an eternal mist. The place was called Aethel. It wasn't on any map. It was inhabited only by the faint glow of blue moss at night, and a mystery that kept even the boldest adventurers peering only from the edges. That mystery was the Aethel Hourglass. The hourglass stood, tall in the center of a field of moss. It wasn't made of glass or wood. It was cast in ancient, humming bronze. But the true oddity was not its appearance, it was its contents. Inside, the sand did not fall down. No, it moved upwards. The clock didn't measure time. It measured hope. Legend said that the more hope a person carried into the valley, the faster the sand would rise, and the sooner that hope would manifest in reality. But if a person entered Aethel with a heart full of despair and worry, the sand would freeze. Worse still, it would begin to descend, as if draining the very spirit out of them. This is the story of Kael. Kael was a brilliant watchmaker. His hands were skilled, his eyes sharp. Once, he could create time mechanisms smaller than a thumbnail with astounding precision. Yet, while he could control time on his watches, he could not control his own mind. Kael was an intense pessimist. He was haunted by worry every day. Before starting a watch, he already imagined failure. "The gear will surely crack," he'd mutter. If a cloud crossed the sky, he'd grumble, "It's definitely going to rain. And the rain will ruin my best tools." Even when he succeeded, he'd say, "That was just dumb luck. Tomorrow will be bad." His life was consumed by complaints, and that negativity began to erode his skill. His hands started to tremble, not from age, but from the thickness of the worry in his heart. His watch orders piled up, but he couldn't finish them. Kael heard the whispers of the Aethel Hourglass. He didn't come looking for hope. No, Kael came to prove that the hourglass was a cruel lie. "I will show everyone," he decided. That hope is a foolish word, invented by weak people to trick themselves. When Kael stepped through Aethel's cold, misty entrance, he walked straight to the bronze hourglass. Kael stood before the Aethel Hourglass, and he found exactly what he expected. The sand inside the clock was completely frozen, motionless, dead there. Beside the silent clock sat an old man named Elias. His clothes were worn, and he owned nothing, yet his eyes glittered like crystal water. Elias wasn't trying to fix the hourglass. He just sat, gazing up at the blue sky above the dome of mist. "Look," said Kael with a sneer, a tone of cynical triumph in his voice. "Even your hourglass of hope is broken. Proof that hope is just a fairy tale told to make people feel better for a moment." Elias turned and smiled. It was a smile so genuine, it actually unnerved Kael. "The clock is not broken, young man," Elias said, his voice soft as a river ripple. "It is merely reflecting the contents of your heart." When you arrived, the sand stopped, frozen by the cold certainty of your belief that everything will always turn out badly. Kael scoffed. "Belief? I am simply a realist. Old man, life is hard. There will be storms. There will be failures. There will be loss. That is a certainty. Why should I bother hoping?" Elias slowly stood up, then pointed to the small stream nearby. "Look at that river, Kael," Elias said. "The water is pure, but it flows over jagged rocks. Every day, the water is assaulted, broken, and tossed about. But does the water ever think, 'I will dry up or I will stop flowing'? No, it simply keeps finding a way forward. It has the quiet certainty that the sea awaits it." Elias then picked up a piece of wet clay he found by the riverbank. Quickly and expertly, he shaped it into a simple cup. "Kael," Elias asked, holding up the unfired clay cup. "Imagine this cup is your life. It is fragile, it is unharmed. If every morning you wake up and say, 'My cup will surely crack. Today I will spill all the water I fill it with,' then what happens?" Kael just stared. "Your hand will tremble with fear," Elias answered himself. "You will touch it with hesitancy. You will walk with uncertain steps. And perhaps, through the very clumsiness born of that fear, you will trip. drop it, and unwittingly prove your own bad prediction right. He set the cup down and picked up a small stone. But Elias continued, his eyes shining. If you wake up and say, "This cup is strong. I will fill it with the water of life and carry it carefully," that thought will steady your hand. It will eliminate the tremor. It will make you walk with a sure, dignified stride. If you stumble, your hand will automatically catch it, because you expect it to remain whole. Elias stepped closer, looking Kael directly in the eye. It's not about magic, Kael, it's about energy. Negative thoughts are a mental burden that weakens your hands and clouds your vision. Positive thought, the calm certainty of hope, is an anchor that makes your spirit firm. Your strength to face the storms doesn't come from the absence of storms, but from your fierce belief that you can get through them. Kael fell silent. Elias's words hit him like a succession of small hammers. He remembered all the watches he had ruined, not through lack of skill, but because he had convinced himself he would fail before he even began. He had always seen the crack before he picked up his tools. He had come to Ethel looking for proof of failure, and he found it reflected in his own mind. In the hourglass dot, with a heart that began to soften, Kael looked back at the Aethel Hourglass. "What must I do, Elias?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, the sneer gone. "Close your eyes," Elias said gently. "Stop the complaints and fears swirling in your head. Today, for the first time, imagine the most perfect watch you have ever made. Feel the peace and certainty in your hands. Not wild wishing, Kael, but calm conviction." Kael closed his eyes. He did not imagine failure, no broken gears. He imagined perfection. He felt the weight of the cutter in his hand. But this time, his hand was steady. He felt peace. He let his mind be filled with hope, not as a fantasy, but as a quiet, firm belief. When Kael opened his eyes, Elias was smiling broadly. Kael turned to the Aethel Hourglass. The sand within, once frozen and dead, was now moving. Slowly, but surely, the grains of hope began to rise upwards, defying gravity, responding to the change in Kael's heart. Kael did not become rich that day. His problems did not vanish instantly, but he gained a far greater treasure, a new mindset. Kael thanked Elias and left Ethel with a lighter heart. He carried that conviction home, and from that day on, he no longer built failure in his mind. Every morning, he woke up and told himself, "Today, my hand will be steady. Today, my watch will succeed." And before long, Kael's watches became the most beautiful, precise, and sought after in all the land. The moral of the story, the tale of the Aethel Hourglass, teaches us that problems will always come, just like jagged rocks in the river. But our choice is whether we face the day with crippling fear or with empowering hope. That hourglass is inside each of us. The change in our lives doesn't begin with a miracle arriving, but with the movement of the sand in our minds. Choose to believe your cup will remain whole, and you will find the strength you need to carry it firmly.